This edition of
Midweek Report coming at you live from SEC Media Days at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. I'm here with Ike Jones. This segment is brought to you by our friends at the Rage Room. If you're in the Opelika area and you are mad about something your coach said at SEC Media Days, head on over to the Rage Room and break some shit. 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika. And if you're in the Birmingham area, 2616 7th Ave South in Birmingham, Alabama. Guys, you know the deal. Join as a member. Lots of great content that we brought you this week. We're going to bring you even more great content, but join as a member. Help keep us on the road when we cover things like this. $5.99 a month will get you there to become a patron level member. Also bringing you guys lots of great watch the film content so you can get behind the scenes and see what's going to happen. Auburn plays a lot of great games. They open with Baylor. They're going to whoop the shit out of Oklahoma. You want to get a membership so that you can see all that broken down. Guys, give the gift of the war report by hitting that gifted membership button. Help someone else become part of the Green Name Gang. You guys have got the blessing of becoming a part of the Green Name Gang. Give that gift to somebody else. I want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code report to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. I want to thank our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. If you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, the Vibe Vault has you covered, not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. Check us out on podcasts, all the podcast platforms. You can find all our SEC Media Days content there in audio form. We're growing on the podcast charts. You can help us hit subscribe, turn on those automatic downloads. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate you guys for helping us climb the podcast charts. Let's get into the show. As I mentioned, we are live from SEC Media Days. I'm Mike G. I'm here with my guy, Ike Jones, and we're talking Hugh Freeze and everything that he had to say this week.
Yeah.
Ike, there were a lot of messages this week that came out. We sat down with Hugh Freeze. We sat down with Connor Lew.
Yeah.
We saw Keldrick Buck.
Yeah.
And we passed by Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, he was there somewhere. Yeah,
yeah, he was in here somewhere. But the overwhelming message this week was that Auburn has a very, very talented football team, and Hugh Freeze seems supremely confident in what Auburn is going to put on the field.
Yeah, I think Hugh Freeze did a good job of doing the thing that in the first two seasons we said he never did, which is talk about his confidence in his players, right? And he's supremely confident in the talent level that they're able to put out there on the field this season, to the point that he went on to say that he felt as if this team could be in playoff contention by the end of or at least in the conversation for that playoff by the end of the season.
Here's the thing with that message. A lot of people feel like, oh, he's getting ahead of himself. That's a big leap. No,
I told people this is what was going to happen, though.
Yep.
Last time, he's doing too little. He's saying we should be in the bowl game. He needs to say more than that. And now when he says we could be in playoff contention, they're getting it. I tell people
this was always what the conversation was supposed to be about in year 3.
Yeah,
Auburn making the playoff. What would you have wanted him to say?
Right.
Well, I hope we just win 8. No. You got the quarterback you wanted in Jackson Arnold. This is the guy they went out and got. You got all the wide receivers. Any coach that says they wouldn't kill for this wide receiver room, is cap. They're lying, right? You got running backs you like. He was bullish on Damari Alston when he came through the door. He said, "Look, he's a much better running back than we gave him credit for right out the door."
Right?
You recruited Jeremiah Cobb. I mean, if they've got the right signal caller. The only question I have is, are they going to be able to dial up the right plays at the right times in the crunch moments this year that they weren't unable to do last year?
Yeah, I think the thing about this team is And Hugh Freeze talked about this. It just seemed as if none of the bounces that could have gone the right way went in Auburn's direction.
Yeah.
And so like it was a very Murphy's Law kind of year of everything that could go wrong. It just was like bad news bears out there in football form. I don't know if there's movies equivalent to that for football, but that's how Auburn felt last season. But yeah, if Auburn is able to be more poised this year and not have the turnover issues, that's something. I think who was that you were talking to somebody, and that's one of the things that they mentioned. Kind of.
It was Roman Harper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The turnover issue was really the biggest issue for Auburn last year. Is in crucial moments, Auburn's inability to hold on to the football, whether that be ill-timed interception or running in for a touchdown fumble. Like it was just too much of calamity at the wrong times for Auburn. And, there are other teams that had a bunch of turnovers. Auburn wasn't taking the ball away enough to even that out. So it was too much of all of that at the same time, and they've got to figure out how to get better.
They do have to figure out how to get better, but the coaches have to figure out how to get better as well, too, because some of those turnovers, like at the Oklahoma game, the interception, when we talked to Peyton Thorne after the game and asked him, what would you do different? And he said nothing. Everybody flipped out.
I do the exact same thing.
I understood what he was saying.
He's like, I was coached to do this way.
Yeah, the way the play was dialed up, that's what he was supposed to do. And it was a bad play call for the moment. So, I think people understand generally that the talent level at Auburn is up.
For sure.
I think that what we heard all week this week is people recognize that they've done a really good job recruiting the first couple of years. They've out-recruited their results on the field.
Yeah.
And, part of that is NIL. Part of that is Hugh Freeze has always been a really, really good recruiter. But can they turn that into wins? Where we're going next, right? Like there was a lot of focus this week on week 1 at Baylor.
Right.
How is Auburn going to look week 1 at Baylor? Are they going to come out and look like a well-oiled machine? I sat with Josh Pate today, and he said, we'll air that segment tomorrow, but he said, look, I don't care how they win week 1.
He's must win.
Just must win.
Yeah.
And while I agree with him, if they stumble to a win where they look terrible offensively, I think that's a bad sign for the rest of the season. So, yes, while you just got to dock wins, you have to have something that, this is not a word, but it is clean upable later in the season. It can't look so far from a finished product that it leaves you with a feeling that, hey, man, they're not going to get away with that week after week.
Right.
We sat with Cole Kublik today. He said it's really hard to be a playoff football team when you're only good at one thing.
Yeah.
You have to have multiple things that you're good at. What are going to be the multiple things that Auburn is going to be good at? Seems like they weren't good at a ton offensively last year.
I mean, honestly, there was no segment of the offense that, and this is something Cole talks about a lot. It's like, what's going to be your identity? Are you going to be a team that is really good at gap scheme? Are you going to be a team that's really good at being able to run zone stuff if you're going to run the football? Are you a team that's going to be really good at quick game if you're going to throw the football? Are you a deep shot team, right? Are you a play action team? What is the thing that helps you to be multifaceted? And it's got to start with a thing and then a thing that you pivot off of that thing.
Yeah.
Auburn didn't have the thing, and so there was nothing to pivot off of. It was just kind of like throwing something against the wall every week to see what stuck, and which is why the identity of that offense looked different from week to week.
Yeah, look, I mean, week after week, Hugh Freeze said, we're shrinking the package to what they do well.
Right.
And then the next week is we're shrinking the package.
Right.
And then the next week is like we're shrinking the package. And I'm like, Hugh, if you shrink the package anymore, nobody's gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
All the shrinkage is not good for anybody.
That shrinkage is not gonna be good for anybody.
Never been a good look. So nobody likes shrinkage.
Yeah.
We had a sponsor that could probably get on that. But look, he's got to expand the package, which is another conversation that we had with Cole Kublik today. Could we finally see, because Cole is not bullish on the tight ends this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's who in that room has proven anything to be bullish about?
No. Brendan Fraser's got some.
But he hasn't
potential.
played a lot, though.
Yeah.
He's been there for a while, but like, what's the productivity on the field? There's a bunch of potential, but there's nothing to really point to
show.
say,
that he's going to be a staple.
Right.
And according to Cole, when you play multiple tight ends, you're looking to kind of like outsize people, and he doesn't feel they have that this year. So with the talent shift from tight end to wide receiver, Could we finally see more 10 personnel? We haven't seen him do it much
well,
so
he
far.
promised that he would at least see it some this year, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like, we haven't run it very often, but he was promising that is something that's going to be a part of what Auburn does this season. But I think that's a necessity based upon how this team is built.
Yeah. Well, he certainly structured it that way. Another theme of the week was breakout players on the season. Who's going to be the breakout player for Auburn this year? The easy pick is Cam Coleman. But I think that Damari Alston has real breakout potential in an offense where the wide receivers may be garnering a lot of attention and not giving the running backs the respect they deserve. And you could see those guys have a big year.
Hugh Freeze seems to think Jeremiah Cobb has the potential to be the breakout guy. I think he really when I listen to Hugh Freeze talk, you start to hear thematically things that he values, right? It was when you listen to him talk about those wide receivers when he first came in, you could tell he valued receivers that had catch radius. That's the thing you heard him talk about Auburn. It didn't really matter how talented the guys in the room were. He's like, hey, I like, what we've got in this guy and this guy, but wish they're a little bit taller, wish they were a little bit bigger, wish the catch radius was there. I think what he values from the running back position is breakaway speed. And Jeremiah Cobb has that breakaway speed. Damari Alston's fast. I don't know that he's got home run speed. And I think that he values the ability of Jeremiah Cobb to be a home run hitter in this offense, especially if they're going to be spreading it out the way that they want to with a 10 personnel type package.
Well, look, we've said it over and over again on this show. When Hugh Freeze's offenses have been the most successful, it's been about a 55-45 run-pass ratio in favor of the run. So they're not afraid to run the ball. But they ran into some bad boxes last year. He felt like, I don't want to do that. And Jarquez Hunter was still able to average 6.4 yards per carry. That is a remarkable number. Only a few guys in the country matched that number or bested it. Omarion Hampton was 6.4 yards per carry last year. RJ Harvey at UCF, 6.8 yards per carry. Ashton Genty, 7 yards per carry. I think the running back at Oklahoma State was 6.4 yards per carry. But, I mean, it was a handful of guys that got to that number with the qualifying amount of carries to be a part of this conversation. And even in spite of that, he was underutilized.
Right.
This was a question that he was asked by us and by others. Do you have a plan not to underutilize your run game this year in spite of all the talent you brought in at wide receiver? Isaac, I think that successful first and second down play calling will have a lot to do with whether either side of the ball is underutilized or overutilized.
Yeah.
They've got to not get behind the chains on first and second down and get into obvious passing downs as often as they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that the issue last year with this team, as much as we could fault some of the lack of use of the running backs, I think it was just very vanilla, and I didn't like the way they opened games a lot last year, where it was like they threw the ball 3 times on the first drive, and Jarquez Hunter wouldn't even touch the ball on the first drive, or they try to get it to him by throwing it to him type stuff. And you couple that with the field position being terrible on a lot of drives to make them feel like they just needed to, let's just get ourselves some breathing room to either get a first down really quickly, or we got to kick the ball away. They didn't use Cam Coleman, I felt like, effectively early in the season in those types of scenarios to just, all right, let's throw a quick game to Cam Coleman, get a quick 5 yards out here. I didn't feel as if what they trusted this offense to be able to do put them in advantageous positions offensively often. I forgot, again, if somebody who you were talking to is like, well, when all of that stuff is going wrong, why don't you just turn around and hand the ball off to your great running back? And they just refuse to do it. And it just didn't make a lot of sense, where it's like, well, we don't trust the receivers, we don't trust the quarterback, but we're not going to overfeed our running back. Like, where are the wires getting crossed on this?
Yeah, actually, I think that was Chris Phillips that said that.
Yeah.
But, Auburn has got to take steps forward offensively. Everyone universally agrees this has a chance to be a very good defense. As a matter of fact, I think Cole was the only one that was a little lukewarm on defense. He feels like they'll be good, but not great. Yeah. I think they're going to be great. I disagree with Cole. But if they can hold serve defensively, that just leaves offense. And, for the second half of the first part here, I want to talk about Jackson Arnold. he got invited to media days.
Mm-hmm.
He clearly is the guy that all Auburn's hopes and dreams are riding on this year. And if he's not, Hugh Freeze is going to have to make a historic pivot in the first 33%, that first third of the season.
Yeah.
I don't see him doing it unless Jackson gets hurt. But it's Jackson Arnold, man. He's the key to all this. If he doesn't work, this offense does not work.
Yeah, I mean, so we had this conversation about Peyton Thorne last year. What is the leash game, right? Like the game where you feel like, okay, you've officially run out of leash. We have to pivot at this point in time. It was 3 games into the season last year, right? And
that was after seeing them for a whole year, though.
Right. But the thing I think that made that decision a little bit easier is the game that you went to the pivot on, which was kind of a cupcake game where you could get somebody's feet wet with that sort of situation. I don't know that you would, unless Jackson Arnold is disastrous, that you'd be ready to pivot away from him that quickly, game 3 of the season, right? Because, okay, he would have been on the road to Baylor and maybe played poorly. Mm-hmm. He's going to play well versus, Ball State and who's the second game of the season?
The second game is Ball State, but the next game is South Alabama.
Yeah.
Or South Alabama, Ball State.
Whatever the he's going to play well in those 2 games. So third game of the season is not the answer to this, right? Game 4 is on the road versus Oklahoma. How much do you really find out if it's working in a road environment in that particular scenario where he's going back home to Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
If he doesn't play well in that game, there are enough excuses in the world to explain why that would be the case, right? And so I don't think you get into a panic mode and have to pull the plug there. Next game on the road is Texas A&M, which is a tough road game. Is that enough? And if it is enough, do you want Deuce Knights to first start to be against Georgia?
Yeah, that's tough.
Right. And so I just don't know that you would make that move until after the Georgia game. Right. And so you get an opportunity to reset midway through the season. But if let's think about this, if that reset is necessary after game 6, how many games have you lost in that stretch?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to imagine you've probably lost 4 of them of those games.
Yeah. A 3-3 Auburn, Jackson Arnold is probably still the quarterback.
Yeah.
A 2-4 Auburn. Yeah. Like someone went seriously wrong.
Yeah.
A 4-2 Auburn, and they're right where I think they should be in that first stretch.
Yeah.
I think it's realistic. And at 4-2, you definitely beat Baylor.
Right.
Right. And you won at least one of your first 3 SEC games.
Let me ask you a question about that, though. A 4-2 Auburn that's winning because of Jackson Arnold or in spite of him?
Ooh. I don't think, look, he's so enamored with Jackson Arnold, I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I think
if he's winning, then all right.
If it's winning, he's going to go out there and he's going to make excuses
and feel like you've got time to fix it.
Yeah, or he's going to say, "Oh, it was on me." It wasn't Jackson.
Let's be honest, it's a tough stretch, right? I mean, so if he's playing poorly on the road versus Baylor, on the road versus Oklahoma, on the road versus Texas A&M, at home versus Georgia, that's not crazy. And if you find ways to win those games, you could say to yourself, all right, going to get a bye week in here, reset. We're going to go on a stretch that you've talked about being one of the easiest stretches of Auburn football scheduling that you've seen. We got some get right games we can get in here in the conference.
Now let's define poor play.
Okay.
Because if it's turnovers, then he might be out of there.
Yeah.
If it's just missed passes or if it's he floated a couple or if it's incompletions, misreads, I think you get past that because you can coach that out. The turnover thing would be hard. Now we said repeating on the show, he only turned the ball over 3 times last year.
Interception-wise.
3 interception-wise at Oklahoma. And quite frankly, I don't think that Jackson was the problem in Oklahoma.
No.
I think that Oklahoma
Brent Venables said as much.
Yeah.
This is like, if you guys have not seen Brent Venables, he gives Jackson Arnold some reprieve. Michael Hawkins as well. He's like, listen, I don't know how successful any quarterback could have been in those types of scenarios. They went through multiple offensive line changes. The top 6 wide receivers on that team were injured.
Yeah.
It's hard to be successful in those types of scenarios as a quarterback. So the stuff around him wasn't right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I find it difficult for people who place all of the blame on Jackson Arnold. Sure, he's culpable, but I don't. It's just too much.
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing that I hope the most for that opening SEC matchup is that Oklahoma flips that stupid wagon over at pregame. And I'm saying that real loud because Locked On Sooners is listening to this right behind me right now. But look, if you can, it's going to be a revenge game for him. For sure. Greg McElroy said this about playing for a defensive coach as a QB. Mm-hmm. He said, when you play for a defensive coach, you hear, don't F this up.
You become risk averse.
Yes, right. Don't mess this up. Don't mess this up. And when you hear what they don't want you to do constantly, it's hard to go out there and do.
Yeah.
Now, he said, think about playing for Lincoln Riley or Steve Sarkisian or any of these great offensive minds. That's not how they talk.
Right.
They want you to go out there and sling it. And Hugh Freeze is in that group. Look, man, if he let Payne Thorne let it fly, I have no doubt he's going to let Jackson Arnold let it fly.
I mean, that's one of the things Jackson Arnold talked about in his pressers about one of the reasons why this was an attractive landing spot for him, because he's like, they're going to push the ball down the field in this offense.
Yeah.
People, for some reason, the people's minds lose the fact that Auburn, in being able to get explosive plays out of their passing game, didn't struggle with that.
They didn't struggle at all.
It's one of the few things, like we talked about what Cole Kubelik said, you got to be good at something. They were good at throwing it down the field last year. Now, some of those were connections, some of them weren't, but they were not afraid to push the ball down the field. And I think this year you're going to see an offense that's even more willing to do that with Jackson Arnold, because he frankly has a bigger arm.
Yeah.
So the danger, I think, is falling in love with that big arm and saying we're just going to show it off and see how, all right, we got one of the fastest dudes in college football and we got a cannon for an arm. We're letting it fly. Like, what percentage chance do you feel like first drive, offensive drive versus Baylor?
Oh, man.
We see at least one shot play in that first couple of plays even.
I think they unleash Eric Singleton Jr. in the first 3 plays. Quite frankly, that guy, every report out of camp, out of summer, he's been electric.
Yeah.
They're talking about his speed. He's unguardable. Just a guy with low 4.2 speed that should be one of the fastest guys in the NFL draft next year. And the second big time transfer wide receiver that Auburn has gotten. Now, look what they did with Keandre Lambert-Smith last year. Penn State fans came and told us he was toxic and he was a cancer and he was all these things. And he was a great teammate and most productive receiver we've seen in quite some time on the since probably Sammy Coates, right?
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
So, and if Auburn had got to play one more football game, he was going to be first 1,000-yard receiver since '99.
Yeah, I
think that you see them do some things that we definitely haven't seen the first 2 years. Yeah. This is a different football team. The makeup of this football team is something that, quite frankly, I don't know if we've ever seen at Auburn. Now, this is completely different. Yeah, the last time Auburn had this many good receivers was literally when we were in school. It was Ben Obamanu, Devin Romashadu,
and even then, they were still a power running football team.
Well, so we never got to see how good those guys really could have been if they had played in a sling it around offense. These are great receivers playing in a sling it around offense.
The only other offense that was a sling it around kind of offense was when Kip Lindsey was at Auburn, and they were trying to play a lot of that kind of style, but they didn't have the same caliber of receivers. This is the first mesh of an offense that wants to throw the ball a bunch with a bunch of guys who can actually go out there and make the plays when they want to do that. This is uncharted territory for Auburn.
It is very uncharted territory for Auburn. Moving through the potential breakout players on the season, obviously Cam Coleman's name came up a lot, right? But I think another guy that people need to keep on their radars, and I'm switching to the defensive side of the ball, is DeMarcus Riddick.
Okay.
This young man has talent to spare. Mm-hmm. And defensively, Auburn's linebacker room could be back. Mm-hmm. We talked about DeMarcus Riddick with Jake Crane being in the mold of what Auburn is used to at linebacker, generally speaking. Jake said he looks like what Bama has. He looks like what Georgia has. This is the type of player.
Both of them wanted him.
That these guys recruit. And in the past, when you've seen Auburn have strong defensive play, linebackers have been really, really good. I think he is another potential breakout player. And another guy I have on my list, to nobody's shock, is Malcolm Simmons. In all this wide receiver talk, this young man's name is getting kind of lost because everybody expects Cam Coleman to be a breakout player. Everybody's talking about Eric Singleton like he might be even better than Keandre Lambert-Smith. But Malcolm Simmons played a lot as a freshman, and Hugh Freeze said he got what he needed this offseason out of Malcolm Simmons.
Yeah.
He's a guy who's now going not 200 miles per hour, but 300 miles per hour, doing the right thing and being more assignment sound. The receivers were running wrong routes and, they lacked synergy, as a young receiver group. If they have that synergy with Jackson Arnold, good God, Malcolm Simmons could be one of the real breakout players for Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, listen, because of the attention that those other two guys are going to get, he should get his opportunities to go crazy. And I'm looking forward to seeing just the creative ways that they're going to try to. He and Eric Singleton being on the field at the same time presents so many opportunities to just be exotic in the way that you get wide receivers the ball. Not to say that Cam Coleman's not that kind of guy, but I don't think Cam Coleman's going to be a speed sweep guy for Auburn. I don't think he's going to be a tunnel screen guy for Auburn. I don't think he's going to be, a reverse guy for Auburn. They're going to do all of those things with both of those guys. And you saw Malcolm a lot in the quick game last year. I think you're going to see him a lot in the quick game again this year.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much attention that has to be paid attention to those other guys. He's going to get his opportunities frequently.
Yeah, look, they've got to utilize all the weapons, and they have to be as multifaceted as Cole said they need to be good, which means using all of the field with all of the players. The last guy I want to talk about before we get to the break is Perry Thompson. Top 30 overall player coming out of high school, has been a little lost in the shuffle. He's been one of the slowest to pick things up of the newcomers, but he doesn't lack on talent. Perry Thompson could be a guy who comes out of seemingly nowhere, not for people in the know, but for the average fan, you might say, oh, I was thinking about Cam Coleman or Eric Singleton or Malcolm or all these other guys who are a little bit more obvious because they played more on their teams last year. And Perry, those guys are going to get so much attention. People might sleep on Perry when he's out there on the field. And at A-Day, we saw him make every kind of catch. He looked great out there with Deuce Knight.
Yeah, I think, the thing with Perry Thompson is just going to be about the availability of snaps. And a lot of that is going to have to do with how well the offense is being productive at moving the ball down the field, staying on the field on third down, all of the things necessary to get more snaps available for more guys. And, I think Perry would have played more last year had they been able to stay on the field a little bit more often.
Yeah.
And so I think that they wanted to see more liberal swapping in and out of wide receivers last year. The offense didn't function in that way. Hopefully this year it won't be a problem and they'll have more snaps available for those guys and you'll see more production from multiple wide receivers in this offense this
year. Yeah, just a great conversation I'm sure will carry into fall camp as the season gets closer. Let's pay some bills, and when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit about NIL as a big topic of discussion this week. Is Auburn doing the right thing on the NIL front? We've talked about it a ton. We're going to talk about it some more after hearing from Hugh Freeze and others. So let's pay some bills, and we'll be right back with more Midweek Report.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
The Rage Room. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Set up a session today at one of the 2 great locations in Opelika or Birmingham by visiting opelika.rageroom.com or birminghamrageroom.com.
This episode of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at Set for Society. Do you want to get to know yourself and maybe even your team a little better? Sets for Society presents a unique opportunity to understand how the human mind works and how it works well with other people. Visit setsforsociety.ai to get started today. Fill out the form. They'll reach out to you and they'll take you through a personality assessment that will not only be enlightening, but it will be something that you can use to make yourself not only a better teammate, a better coworker, but a better person. Sets for Society. Again, visit them at setsforsociety.ai. As always, we want to thank our title sponsor, The Rage Room. Visit them in Opelika at 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika, Alabama. Or if you're in the Birmingham area at 2616 7th Ave South. Break some shit, throw some axes. The Rage Room is a great place to get some rage out. If your coach said some shit you don't like this week, the Rage Room is the place for you to go. Guys, check us out on podcast, every single podcast platform. We are there bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. If you missed it, I sat down with Stephen Pearl and Ira Bowman from Auburn basketball, the masterminds behind Bruce Pearl that made a big difference in that Final Four run that we saw, and a lot of things that they've done well on the basketball court. That was audio-only content. You don't want to miss that. The Auburn Express Uptempo College Loop, Just a Sec, and the War Report Gaming Channel. As always, check us out on pod. I want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, Bammers, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank our friends at the Vibe Vault. Visit them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. My guy, Steve Watkins, came in on a Sunday to get me lined up and cleaned up for SEC Media Days. They're working hard over there, not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. Let's get to some comments here before we get back into the conversation. I see you guys in the comments. Do us a favor, drop us a super chat if you want us to see. The comments are flying fast here with a lot of you guys in here. First comment comes up for War Dank Eagle. He said, whose interview surprised you the most, for better or for worse? I enjoyed Mike G and Cousin Shane a lot, by the way. Cousin Shane was a great interview. Honestly, the interview that surprised me the most was Cole Kublik. We haven't dropped that one yet, but Cole was a lot more lukewarm, Ike, than I was thinking he was going to be.
So I watched the segment that, I did something on this. I can't remember what prompted me to look at Cole Kublik's segment with Greg McElroy on the top offensive lines in the conference. And Greg McElroy had Auburn's offensive line in his top 5. And Cole was like, I guess. He's like, I don't know. Cole, I think, is, he inhabits the spirit of Daniel Denny a little bit right now. Okay. He is he's an Auburn fan who's been damaged so much by hype in the preseason and being let down in the regular season of recent that Cole's like, y'all ain't getting my hopes up this year. Yeah. Like I'm gonna stay reserved and surprise me. I'd rather you surprise me than you get. I told somebody, I'm ready to risk it all again, man. To hurt my feelings again. I'm feeling the bug. But yeah, Cole, he ain't going for it this year, brother.
Appreciate the super chat, War Dank Eagle.
Well, I mean, to answer the question though, which one surprised me the most? I think the conversation, this isn't one that necessarily that we did, but one of the things I liked the most when I went out there and I was going around, Jackson Arnold, he got a little charisma about him, man, where you just kind of feel like, whatever happened before did not damage his self-confidence. And he talked about like he feels like he's getting his self-confidence back. I liked the a little bit of the bravado that was underneath the surface of like, I'm ready to show some people last year didn't define me.
Interesting.
And I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out on the field this year.
Next comment up here is from our guy, Stephen Neely. He says, thoroughly impressed with Connor Lew's poise during his interview. Definitely NFL ready. Look, preseason all SEC selection, Connor Lew played as a freshman, got a chance, took advantage of it. Connor Lew is a guy, your second quarterback on the field. Yeah. People don't understand, Ike. The center, super important. Hard to have good offensive line play without good center play. And people universally agree that Connor Lew is going to be a dude for Auburn football here.
Yeah, no, I agree that Connor Lew, again, I got an opportunity to talk to him one-on-one, even though briefly. And he talked about the mental preparation because he was injured or he was on the sidelines a lot during the spring and how much more he's seeing the bigger picture of what they're trying to accomplish offensively and helping see it from the coach's perspective. I think that's invaluable going into the season for your center to have that level of perspective about what they're trying to get accomplished offensively, especially when you have a new quarterback that's in there. He knows the offense better than Jackson Arnold at this point in time. He's going to be able to get them right. So hopefully that translates to his play on the field this year.
Couldn't agree more. Next comment here from Stephen Neely, breakout player Perry Thompson. I agree. He is. He does have that potential. We'll see if they can get him the ball. Looks like we got another comment here from Lawrence Robinson. He says, does Jackson's dual threat ability extend his leash?
I don't think that his leash has anything to do with his tangible athletic abilities. It's going to be about his play. But what I will say is that his dual threat ability will make it to where they're not limited in his. So if I could answer this question to say yes, because they're not limited in the options of ways that they can utilize him to be productive on offense. If it's not going exactly how you need it to go with his arm, then you can lean on his legs a little bit more than maybe you anticipated. So that would extend his leash in that way. Because you saw their willingness to do that with Peyton Thorne, and Jackson Arnold is a better runner than Peyton Thorne. And if anybody wants to argue that, please go look at his tape.
Yeah.
He's a better runner. He's faster. Now, Peyton Thorne was extremely tough. I don't question Peyton Thorne's toughness, but Jackson Arnold's just a better, he has better legs. And so, yeah, I think it can help extend that leash.
Our next comment here is from Heavy. He says, thanks for the elite coverage, guys. Thank you. We are working hard here from the College Football Hall of Fame this year to bring you guys lots of content. I did 18 hits yesterday, so I was wiped. Wardank Eagle comes back and says, I haven't watched the film on Jackson Arnold because I'm too scared to. He says, don't show me, Jack. Just don't show me anything.
Watch the film. Listen, here's the thing. Nobody's film is going to look flawless. They're going to see some things you'd like, some things that you don't like. But Hugh Freeze said it himself. When he went and looked at the film, he was like, we evaluated this guy in high school. And he's like, when I went and I looked at the film and I saw all the stats, he's like, wait a minute, there's what I remember seeing right there. It's there. It's there for you to see on film. There are some elite traits as far as his arm strength, as far as the quickness in which he gets the ball out, ball placement, his ability to throw the ball on the run. He's got all the stuff. Can he put it together more consistently with some better tools around him? That's what you're waiting to see.
Yep. Next comment here from Stephen Neely. 96% chance of a deep throw on the first drive. Look, if they get it going, I think you're going to see a lot of deep shots there on the road to try to catch Baylor off balance. Last comment before we get back into the discussion. What if Auburn creates more turnovers on defense this season? More turnovers on defense, more opportunities for the offense. They lacked opportunities on offense last year, and that's why I think you saw them. When you play from behind, you throw the ball more.
Right.
And that's a fact. I think if they can run more plays and be more successful on first and second down, you see a little bit more balance, still in favor of the run, but with no lack of opportunities in the passing game for the wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, being able to, and this is something Brent Venables talked about. He's like, listen, you can't give it away more than you take it away, or you put yourself in a position where you're not going to win a lot of games.
Yeah.
And that was the Auburn's turnover differential. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was ugly, right? Like that's something I don't want to see again, is what Auburn's turnover differential was last season, because it was abysmal how often Auburn was giving the ball away, but not finding ways to take it away. And so hopefully this year they have been able to cure really both sides of that equation. Give it away a little bit less, take it away a little bit more, and you'll be in a position to get some more dubs out there on the schedule.
Agreed. Appreciate the comments, guys. Let's jump back into the conversation. NIL, is Auburn doing it the right way? I had a chance to talk to an anonymous team GM today, and he agreed that there are a lot of teams here going out on a limb that these rules will not be enforceable. And what he said specifically was, if you're looking at a team with five stars on their roster right now, based on the average going rate for a 5-star, which is about $1 million, you spent a third of your cap on 5 players.
Right.
So where the hell is the rest of the money coming from for your roster?
Right.
And that's teams spending over what they believe they have available. Now, what we know, because we did a segment that you guys seem to love, explaining the NIL clearinghouse and what their responsibilities are. They have the charge of figuring out payee association,
right,
and whether those deals have real market purpose and whether they apply to your cap. What a lot of schools are finding out is deals done through their collective are going to apply to their cap. And the date that we have circled is August the 1st.
Right.
We did a press gaggle with Hugh Freeze, and John Cohen made a surprise appearance at this gaggle.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't know, every single media days, we have the meeting before the meeting where certain press gets invited to go sit down with the coach, and we have not one-on-one, but a more intimate kind of Q&A ahead of media days. And Hugh said, John came in and said that they feel like they're doing it the right way, and he made it clear after August 1st, he feels like you're going to see some changes because these rules definitely will be enforceable in his mind, and Auburn wants to be in a unique place. But he did leave it open to say, look, if the rules aren't enforceable and if we need to change tactics, we're open to doing that as well too. But for right now, we're okay being behind in recruiting because we think that if it happens the way we think it's going to happen, you're going to see kids say, look, you had fake money,
right?
When this big time enforcement arm comes over and says, look, that deal applies to your cap, or this deal is not even valid. You have to rework it. And Auburn's going to be like, look, man, the really reasonable deal, the right deal we have on the table is still available to you. Come on back to the Plains.
Right. Well, I mean, here's the thing. And this is something that you and I have been adamant in saying. August 1st, one of two things happens.
Yep.
Auburn was right, and people have to come back to the table who had these fake deals, or Auburn was wrong, and they have to come back to the table with a new deal.
Yeah, right.
What was clear from John Cohen is the thing that I've been saying this entire time. People are like, oh, John Cohen deserves to be fired for how he's handling this. He made it very clear in that press gaggle. We're going to do what we need to do.
Yeah.
If it means that we need to come back to the table with more money, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's not too late to pivot because there's a long time between August 1st and early signing day in December. So they're going to do all the stuff that they got to do to make it happen. But listen, anybody who thinks Auburn is the only person operating in this way, you haven't been listening to what's happening out here at SEC Media Days. There are multiple coaches who are echoing the sentiments that a lot of teams are just out here doing stuff that clearly violates what's happening. And freaking commissioner was like, bro, if y'all ain't want guardrails, y'all should have just told me that up front. Yeah. Like, I thought we wanted rules, and y'all are still treating this like it's a ruleless society.
Have we released that interview yet?
I'm not sure.
We put that one out yet. But I sat out with Greg Sankey this morning.
Yeah.
And I asked him, is it frustrating that you had these teams that asked for the guardrails, and now you have institutions within your own conference
that getting ready to violate and then sue
and then mount legal challenges to the guardrails that they asked for? He said it's very frustrating.
Right.
The exact quote is, if you don't want the guardrails, just tell us and we'll let you spin into oblivion. Yeah. Right. I think that the guardrails are necessary for the competition, because we expanded the playoff because we wanted more team to have a shot at the playoff. Right. What NIL is doing is it's going to tip the scale of talent so far in these other schools' directions that you're going to be right back where you started, with most of the big boys making it, and then just a couple of outliers that happen to outkick their coverage, or so to speak, or outplay their talent level.
Right.
Be in the conversation for those last one or two spots, which is exactly where we were at before.
Yeah, it doesn't. If you're going to allow unfettered NIL access to people who've got a bunch of money, you don't change the conversation in college football at all. You might as well go back to the BCS.
So, look, Auburn has money to spend.
Sure.
They have money to spend. And my source, I'm going to repeat, told me that Auburn is getting outbid for those top athletes that they want by an average of $100,000 at minimum.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then you're thinking, all right, if the cap is real, I not only have to manage for that year, but you have to think about how caps work. I have to manage for future years, and I have to manage for player retention. Because guess what? If you're recruiting that well, those guys are going to come in, Ike, and they're going to play well. And then the next year, they're going to do what pro players do. They're going to want more money.
Exactly.
And you have to have money for that as well, too.
Right.
So you have to be careful about the precedents you set with that first deal. If you aim too high, there's nowhere for you to go. And eventually, you will run out of money, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
So there are levels to this.
Yeah.
there are layers and levels to this. And Auburn is taking such a smart approach. My good friend Madison Riggins, follow her on Twitter, by the way. I think her handle's like MQ Riggins or something. But she kind of tweeted at me today and said, look, I could go on a whole 3-hour lecture about why Auburn's approach to this is actually very smart.
Yeah.
But there are financial things that a lot of people just don't understand. And the other thing that we learned this week was teams were actually front-loading deals ahead of these rules being enforced. So like they were like, hey, let's pay out the whole deal so it doesn't count towards our cap, whether that was for player retention or player acquisition.
Right.
If we pay it all out before July the 1st, it won't count toward this new cap that's going to be enforced. And so that's going – I had a couple of football people, not Auburn related, tell me today that they feel like that's going to create a competitive advantage for those teams for at least the next 2 years. So going into 2027, they're good,
right?
If they front loaded those deals and they can keep those players on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, so listen, but that's not the way this is supposed to work, though, right? It's supposed to be an active
this
cap.
Was the intention.
Now, listen, I am a noted Lane Kiffin hater. I am, but like a lot of people, I will agree with people who I dislike when they agree with me. And what Lane Kiffin said that he agrees with me on is that that's not the way this cap is supposed to work. And people should be in a position where it should rotate. And this is something that you said. 1 year, you should be top 5 in recruiting because you have a bunch of money to spend. You didn't retain a bunch of guys graduated. They left in the portal, whatever reason. You got a bunch of extra money to spend. So you're going to spend that on new player retention, whether that be via the portal or via high school recruiting. But then you should be good for a couple of years if you've done a good enough job retaining players because you don't have the cap money to go replenish and get new players. So it shouldn't be the same teams being in the top 5 recruiting every single year if you're doing a good job with player retention. I agree with Lane Kiffin. That's the way this is supposed to work.
Right.
It's supposed to be a situation similar to how it is in the NFL, where if you're a really good team, guess what? You don't get the first pick in the draft. Yeah. You don't get to replenish the best player in the league or the next new talent. You don't get to get that guy. Yeah. Somebody else gets to have him this time because unless you want to be Shamar Stewart and you decide that you're going to violate whatever happens in the draft and try to come back. Have you been keeping up with the Shamar Stewart thing? I don't even understand what he thinks is happening. Whatever. Unless that happens, but you should be in a position if you were a team that was just on the precipice to get some good players on your team for the next time because you haven't overspent.
Well, this brings me back to something that I've been saying that I think if the rules are actually enforced, we will see come to fruition. The days of people having top 5 class on top 5 class on top 5 class on top 5 class may be over if they can enforce these rules.
Correct.
Because you're not going to have the cap space to do that year after year. And you're going to have to spend a lot of that cap keeping all the great players you brought in just a couple of years before.
Right.
There's a chance that this is good for college football, not only in terms of creating parity through, spreading the wealth over, all the teams, but also keeping kids in college a little bit longer.
Right.
So they're not running for the NFL. And when that guy who, why Auburn hasn't broken a bunch of Auburn's passing records, as passing records go, are pretty weak.
Right.
And the reason is because when Auburn gets good quarterbacks, they don't stay very long. Yeah. People talked about Bo Nix in his, 3 years playing at Auburn, he's going to leave here with all these records. I'm like, well, let's be honest.
How many 3-year starters did Auburn have in their history?
There were the only true 4-year starter in the whole history of the program was Stan White.
Right.
In the early 90s.
And they weren't throwing the ball.
Jason Campbell played for 4 years, but he was not a 4-year starter. Right. He split time with Daniel Cobb and those first 2 years very famously. It wasn't until 2003 that he really put a stranglehold on that starting job.
Right.
Jarrett Stidham, 2 years gone. Cam Newton, 1 year gone. Nick Marshall, 2 years gone.
Right.
Bo played 3 years, and that was
because number one, you don't see guys start as freshmen.
No, you don't see that.
And if you did start as a freshman, how often are you making it to your junior year as still a starter?
But if you're making millions of dollars and having lots of success, you might, and you're just on the line, like a really great college quarterback, but not a quite first round NFL quarterback.
It would be the same thing that happened with Janai Broom with basketball. It's like, okay, or getting to Hyde Pettiford back for another season at Auburn. You didn't quite get the draft grade that you wanted, but there's money here to come back. So let me just run it back for another season.
Yeah, it's an easier decision to come back for a third or fourth year rather than go pro when there's this kind of money involved. I think that improves the quality of the college game. Yeah. But I'm going to go back to the parity that cap space creates. Again, if you're Alabama and you just had a top 5 class and now you've got another top 5 class coming in, the GM that I spoke to said, you look at that roster, you tell me how the hell they, knowing what we know about the market value for 5 stars, how they have 5 stars in their recruiting class and they have room to recruit the rest of their roster to the point that they have a top 3 or 4 class. He said that's the only way they're doing that is if they're completely ignoring the cap. Right. That's it. That's about, and on August 1st, John Cohen is betting that NIL goes that come through and start dropping the hammer because apparently they have enforcement teeth and they know they have enforcement teeth. So they're preparing legal challenges because you're not getting lawyers involved. You don't think they're going to be something seriously to contend with. This was part of the house deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. The problem, I guess the issue that you have is like, what does that enforcement look like, and what are the sanctions going to be looking like? Like, is it going to be luxury tax type
all
stuff?
Of the above.
Or,
John Cohen told me all of the above because I asked him. I said, "Is it cap penalties? Is it fines to the institution? Is it loss of eligibility to the athlete? Is it fines to the athlete?" And he said, "NIL go decides that, and it could be all of the above." So if you're an institution, everybody has culpability here. The athlete has the first responsibility in making sure their deals are submitted properly. The institutions and the conference have audit responsibilities to make sure that deals are being submitted. So if you have a highly rated athlete, it's not going to be an excuse to say, well, we didn't know he submitted this. No. It's your job to know. It's kind of like a parent. Yeah. If your child is doing something they're not supposed to be doing, you can't control everything, but it's your job to know what your child is doing.
Yeah.
They're looking at it like that. So I think that if that's true, that's a good thing for the rules. If you want this to work, this is a good thing for the rules. Yeah. If you don't want this to work, you never really wanted guardrails around this to begin with. You just wanted to be able to spend money because you have more money to spend in the next.
It feels as if in a lot of these instances, people just wanted to know what the rules were so they knew when they were breaking the rule.
Yeah.
Not because you actually wanted the rule. You were like, well, at least I knew when I stepped over the line. It's like, okay, the line's right here. Great. Now, when I step over it, I know exactly what I did wrong. So I have an excuse ready for when I do it wrong.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I get that. Look, this is crazy times in college football. Every time I sit down with Greg Sankey, who, by the way, compliments our setup every single time we see him. But every time I sit down with Greg Sankey, he's incredibly forthcoming and honest about where things are at. And I think he's a great commissioner. I think he's done a lot of good, not only for the SEC, but for all of college football and college sports. The SEC is the leader in almost every major advancement in college sports over the last 5 or 6 years because of his leadership. And I think he understands this issue uniquely.
Yeah.
And this is why I think that Auburn is doing the right thing. I was on the fence, and there's some people who I respect highly that don't think that Auburn's doing the right thing. They think A.D. Cohen's job is on the line if he gets this wrong. I'm not so sure that it is.
I'm not there.
I'm not there. Yeah, I don't think he gets fired over this because they have time to pivot. What he will get fired over is if the coach that he hired doesn't win football games in the fall.
Yes.
Which has absolutely nothing to do with 2026 recruiting.
Yeah.
That is recruiting he's already done. So with all the money that has been spent already and the checkbooks that have been opened and the big deal and the hoo-ha that have been made about this class of athletes, and with the quarterback you pick, if you can't win football games, it's not going to matter for Hugh Freeze because he's going to be out here and A.D. Cohen might be behind him.
Yeah, I mean, again, you've got to be in a position where the cash cow for your university is doing well. Like, it's great to have all of these other sports that are doing phenomenally, but when you get to the place where your football team isn't doing well, it just doesn't cut it in this conference.
Yeah.
Unless you're Kentucky, right? Like, unless you want to be Kentucky, then you can maybe get away with not having a good football program. But I don't think Auburn's in that position.
Yeah, I don't think they're in that position either. It's just been such a ride so far through this. I'm happy that the athletes are getting paid. I think they deserve to get a slice of what they created.
Right.
They are the absolute heartbeat of college sports, and it has become a billion-dollar industry, and they deserve some slice of the pie.
Right.
And they definitely don't deserve to be told, I can no longer play anymore because I took $50 from a booster one time for, I mean, think about the ridiculous stories we've heard over the years about, we had a booster pay for a guy to fly home for his grandmother's funeral. And that was a violation. Give me an effing break.
Yeah.
Like that's not what the rules were intended for. And it kind of took the compassion out of where a lot of these college athletes are at. There's a lot of very elitist people who think just because you're given a scholarship to go to school, that's enough payment for what you're doing. I've never been in that camp.
Yeah.
I think the scholarship is a blessing for any student that can get one, but I don't think it's anywhere near equal to what they're actually generating in terms of real revenue and real-time market value for the university. So now that they're getting paid, we just need real regulations around it. Think about any other industry. Unions are formed,
right?
I don't know if you've seen what's going on in Philadelphia. They just ended their strike, but their DC 33 union, which is like the sanitation, they decided they weren't picking up trash no more because the mayor gave a bunch of her friends raises and then turned their nose up when they asked for more money because the average salary of a sanitation worker in Philadelphia is $44,000 a year when you need to make nearly $70,000 a year just to be poor there. And bags of trash were piling up around the streets of Philadelphia when they stopped. It looked third worldish for a while.
Yeah.
Eventually they caved and they came to a compromise. It was under what they asked for, but it was definitely more than what they were getting. And, you see these types of negotiations happening in the real world all the time where they say, hey, look, man, we're not getting a big enough slice of the pie for what we do and for the value that we bring to society. And you need to fix that.
Yeah.
Well, you can argue sports and value to society, but what they're generating is not an argument.
Right.
They are generating billions of dollars, and it's not even close. We've seen college basketball, like that tournament, probably the best tournament in the world is the March Madness, best tournament in the world. And, creating some of the most exciting moments that we've seen in sports over years. And to think that those athletes aren't getting any part of the pie is crazy. So I think Auburn's on the right track. I think A.D. Cohen has the right idea. I don't think that his job is tied to it. I think his job is tied to whether Hugh Freeze wins games or not. And look, if they don't win enough of them this year, which is where I want to end the show, 7 wins, I don't think firing should be off the table at 7 wins. The reason I say that is because you have 1, maybe 2 inexplicable losses at 7 wins. And if that's the best you can do, one of the best rosters we've ever seen, you might not be the coach for Auburn.
Right.
8 wins, you definitely beat somebody that you weren't supposed to beat or everybody thought you were going to lose to. At 9 wins, you definitely beat somebody
for sure
that you weren't supposed to beat. And at 10 wins, you're in the playoff and, you can end all discussion about whether he can get the job done or not. Now, that 10-win mark is important because Alabama won 9 games last year, and even the ghost of Nick Saban couldn't get them into the playoff. Missouri won 9 games last year, but they were a mediocre football team that won 9 games, and they missed the playoff. Ole Miss, give me a break. They missed the playoffs last year, and they had no excuse to not win 10. They beat Georgia and somehow still blew it.
Yeah.
Crazy. South Carolina probably outperformed at 9 wins because they went on a crazy 6-win stretch to end their season, which culminated with them beating Clemson, and they missed the playoffs. The mark is 10 if you want to get in. The teams that won 10 got in. Georgia got in. Tennessee got in. Texas got in. And if you're Auburn and you could somehow get to that group, because I really think we might be in for an all-time Iron Bowl. Auburn goes 4-2, and then they clean that 5-game stretch after Georgia, which is Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Mercer. You may have a winner-take-all Iron Bowl for a playoff spot.
Yeah, or you have Auburn on the precipice of getting to and Alabama fell apart well before that, and and I'm rooting for that one. But no, yeah, it definitely should be in that sort of position. I don't know what the lower limit is for firing, but I do think that if it looks disastrous for Auburn this season again, then you do need to figure out, like, is it time to go in a different direction? I don't want to put a number on that. Unless it's like, I think the lower limit for me is probably closer to 6 than it is 7.
Yeah.
But it's just on the precipice of that, because again, to your point, if you only get 7 wins, then you probably lost the game that you had no business losing. Or Baylor is one of those 7. Like, I don't think that Baylor is a game that you should win, but it's definitely a winnable game, because a lot of people feel as if Auburn is the more talented team in that whole situation. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens with them coming into this season, but they've got some work to do to prove a lot of people. One thing's for sure, they're either going to prove a lot of people right, or they're going to prove a lot of people wrong. There's not really anything in the middle for Auburn this season.
I agree.
That doesn't put Hugh Freeze squarely in the bullseye of what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go on and get out of here. But before we do, let's get to some comments to end the show. I want to thank you guys for joining us live from SEC Media Days. First comment comes from our guy, Heavy. Son wants his birthday at the Rage Room. How do I give you guys credit when reserving with them? Just head to the counter and let them know that the War Report sent you. We appreciate that.
Yep.
Lawrence Robinson says, I bought my Iron Bowl tickets already. Great. All right. My man getting ahead of it. Going to be a good one at Jordan Air. And Robinson says, remember what happened to Javon Robinson. Hopefully they do a great investigation.
This is in terms of the report that came out from Nathan King just recently that Malcolm Simmons was arrested. And it is domestic violence charges.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I hate that report, but we'll see where that goes. We'll learn more about that. Neil Wallace says LSU is going to be beast this year.
They're not on our schedule. Screw them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that's the last comment before we get out of here. All right, great show. I want to thank you guys for joining us live from SEC Media Days in Atlanta. We'll be back tomorrow. It's the last day of SEC Media Days. We'll hear from the last few coaches to go up. We'll talk more with some prominent college football names tomorrow. Content will be dropping tomorrow and over the weekend. This has been your midweek report. Before we get out of here, I want to thank our sponsor, our title sponsor, the Rage Room. If you're in the Opelika area and you are looking to get some rage out, if your coach said some shit that pissed you off this week, the Rage Room is the place to go. 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika. If you're in the Opelika area, 2616 7th Ave, South in Birmingham, Alabama. If you're in the Birmingham area, we appreciate you guys for going to sponsor them. When you get to the counter, let them know that the War Report sent you. Also want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Great sponsors. We appreciate our guy Richard for sponsoring the show. Want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado Grills. And our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. If you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, the Vibe Vault is a place for you. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. Let's go on and get out of here. We appreciate everybody for joining the show on a Wednesday night. A little bit of an unorthodox show today, but great show nonetheless. We got more great content. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Join as a patron and subscribe to us on podcasts. We are growing our audio numbers. It's great. We need you guys to subscribe, turn on automatic downloads, and help us climb those podcast charts. We're signing off, Ike, and as always, War Eagle.